Greetings. God's blessings to all of you who have joined us today. We're glad you're with us for our webinar on life ministry, and we're going to get started in just a moment. We're going to give another minute here, make sure everybody's logged on, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So hang on just another minute. There we go. Now we're getting them. All right, I think we're ready to go. We've got everybody logged in now, so it's great to have all of you with us today. God's blessings to you again, and we're so happy to have Deaconess Tiffany Maynor with us, Director of Life Ministries for the LCMS, and I'll let her describe all the wonderful things she does for us. And but Jenna and I are super glad that she's joined us today, and we're all over the place. I think we're from the Midwest and the East Coast, and so we're all over today. So that's always fun with a webinar. But again, if you have any questions for Deaconess Maynor while we are going through our webinar today, you'll notice at the top of the attendee list over on the left-hand side, there's an arrow there that you can open the list. There's an attendee chat feature there. Feel free to put your questions in that attendee chat feature. Also, Jenna is going to give you a link where you can download our presentation for today, as well as just wanted to remind you, it will be available on archive. So if you want any of the archived information, that'll be on our archive on our website down the road after it processes. Also, if you have questions, if you don't use the attendee chat feature, you can go at the top bar, the toolbar there, it says view audience questions, and you can type your questions into that audience question spot as well. So that's the two places where you can interact with Deaconess Maynor. We'll have her presentation, then a little Q&A time at the end. And let's begin with a word of prayer. Gracious Lord, our Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this day. We give you thanks for the fact that in this sinful and chaotic world, you are our rock and our stay, our very life. We give you thanks that we have an opportunity to defend life in all respects through your most precious gospel. We give thanks for Life Ministry and the work that they do, and Deaconess Tiffany Maynor, and we pray your blessing be upon our webinar today, that it might be enriching and enlightening to our work that we do, that you have prepared in advance for us to do. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. All right, take it away, Tiffany.
Well, it's great to be able to join you today, and hello to anyone who's watching today and then the video afterwards. I am the new director of LCMS Life Ministry. I was called right as the pandemic was starting up and installed this summer. I'm a second career church worker. My first career and degrees were in business, and my husband's a second career pastor. We both grew up in Iowa, and we've lived and served in small town ministry. My service to the church has been in a variety of human care, mercy areas. I've served in a local pregnancy resource center, and been involved in leadership with Lutherans for Life. I've also served in disaster response and in disability ministries, in addition to being on staff at LCMS congregations and schools. Just before coming to the LCMS Office of National Mission, I was serving as a district executive in the New England district. Lived in Connecticut and Massachusetts. And my role there was supporting school ministries, human care ministries, and I also provide a lot of care and support for our church workers. So I've had a lot of experiences throughout the church, and really been formed in a lot of different ways. But really, as it pertains to life ministry, that the greatest formation that God has taken me through, even greater from being a marketer to being a deaconess, is really from being a pro-choice young Christian woman to being a Lutheran who confesses God as the creator and of all life, of all human life, and it's He who gives value to life from conception to natural death. I didn't always understand that, and I think that there's a lot of people out in our world, millions, not billions, who believe differently, like I did before. LCMS Life Ministry, to give you a bit of an overview, is it really thousands of people throughout our church body who are serving in a variety of ways locally in their towns and in their churches. So myself and others in the International Center, we work through districts and congregations and even international mission regions in order to get church workers, congregations, resources for the individuals and families that they serve. Um, all around our country, we see that so many people are suffering under society's assault upon God's gifts of life and his gifts of marriage and family. People are pretty obviously suffering under the pain and isolation, the brokenness that's caused by original sin. So, Pastor mentioned in his prayer that our defense and our nurture of people who are vulnerable and defenseless is so important. Maybe you can tell from what I described that our definition of life ministry is pretty broad. So we deal with beginning of life areas. Of course, abortion is just a huge problem in our world. In the U.S. alone, we're talking like 62 million children who've been aborted since Roe v. Wade was made legal back in the 70s, early 70s. January 22nd is the anniversary of the Roe v. Wade, and so January has taken on a bit of a life month focus for us. But in addition to beginning of life situations and issues, we talk about and inform the church and help the church with disabilities ministry, physical health, mental health, other areas that deal with God's design of marriage and the family, and end of life issues. LCMS life ministry really is mercy. It's about caring for people. God had mercy on us and has given us abundant forgiveness and support for life, and we share his mercy with those who are around us. So mercy specifically being caring for people in both body and soul. In the pro-life arena, Lutherans have tremendous gifts to share with the world. Some really distinct theological gifts that other pro-life folks, Christians and other organizations don't have. So we're unique because of our understanding of suffering and our understanding of God's promises and his actions. And we can share that perspective. We have the very gospel to share with the world. That's pretty wonderful that we're able to do that. The Office of National Mission is where life ministry is organized in Synod. So there's 22 program areas in the Office of National Mission serving domestically. The church decides what Synod will do via convention. Maybe some of you know that, maybe others of you didn't realize that. And we've been given mission priorities. Some of those that inform the work that LCMS Life Ministry does are to perform human care in close proximity to word and sacrament ministries. So those are our congregations. And also to strengthen and support the family in living out God's design. We also collaborate with members and partners for mission effectiveness. So LCMS Life Ministry has a number of partners. Lutherans for Life is probably the most well-known. Lutherans for Life is a recognized service organization of the LCMS. Pan-Lutheran, they work with a lot of other Lutheran church bodies. But a number of the Lutherans for Life staff members are LCMS, so we really enjoy working with Lutherans for Life. But we have other partner organizations that we work with in LCMS Life Ministry. We have relationships with organizations outside the LCMS, like the National Pro-Life Religious Council, Alliance Defending Freedom, the National March for Life organization. We really like to stay connected to others. We actually have a stronger voice when we stand together with a variety of pro-life organizations, both within the church and without the church. So in our LCMS circles, we work quite closely with the Lutheran Center for Religious Liberty. You may be familiar with the work that's being done in Washington, D.C. on advocating and the discussions on life, marriage, and religious liberty. And then there's a whole host of recognized service organizations, ones that provide foster care and adoption support, and also end-of-life supports. Lutheran Family Service is doing phenomenal work in the Midwest. They're a great and strong partner in Iowa and some of the neighboring states around Iowa. We also have Lutheran Redeeming Life maternity homes. They are focused on Florida and expanding to other states and districts. So it would be great if some of you at some point in time could connect with Redeeming Life and see if there's possibilities for maternity homes close to where you're serving. We also have Place of Refuge in Wisconsin that provides maternity home for women who are in unexpected and difficult pregnancies. And you can look at a lot of the other life organizations, recognized service organizations, on the LCMS.org website. There's a whole database that you could put the word life into and come up with all the other RSOs that are serving in life ministry. I also wanted to focus us more specifically on how rural and small town life and ministry is so crucial in the pro-life arena. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but where you live is often used by pro-choice people in abortion debates and in some of the media. You might hear phrases like access to reproductive health care. That's really a code. It's a code for abortion, and it's code for measuring how close abortion clinics are to people. So sometimes it can almost be ammunition used in legislative efforts that rural and small town areas don't have enough abortion clinics, and so therefore there needs to be public funding. So our folks and who live in rural areas and small towns and our congregations that serve there are poised to make a really big difference in life ministry in our world. So there are a number of ways that we can make a difference in life ministry. I'm going to talk about three of them. The first one being care for life. So there's a great opportunity for the church to support people in body and soul, which is providing mercy. Mercy is all over the New Testament. Jesus forgiving people, he also fed them and he healed them. And that's what the Apostle Paul asked for in Acts when he asked churches to help Jerusalem when there was a famine. So providing this type of care for people and their physical needs is really what's needed when women are faced with unexpected pregnancies. Usually they have a lot of fear about their support or their finances. So some of our congregations can really step up and provide material goods. It doesn't have to be a very large congregation or in a big city or right next to an abortion clinic. It can scale in all kinds of different ways. We have a number of smaller congregations who take in material goods and keep them on hand. A church that I served a while back, we would keep bags of items that we could distribute immediately if someone came in, or we could provide to our community. Things like formula, diapers, infant clothes, things like that could be done out of your church to care for women with their material goods and unexpected pregnancies. We also can provide mercy for people who are suffering from an abortion decision. In our churches and in our pews, our Bible studies, there's a lot of people who are impacted by abortion decisions, and we refer to them as post-abortive. And I'm saying people because these decisions don't just affect the women, the mothers who end up having an abortion, but it ripples out to a lot of other people in their lives. Of course, the fathers, but family members and friends as well. So a lot of care is needed for these really bruised souls who are struggling after an abortion decision. And then with other life issues, we've got a lot of folks who struggle with mental illness, people who are struggling with identity and family issues, and also end of life. And we can do a lot to provide mercy when someone is ill and near death. So thousands of people in life ministry are caring for life. I mentioned the Apostle Paul, who advocated for the famine in Jerusalem in the book of Acts. We need to provide for bodily need, but the entire Christian church needs to respond to a famine in contemporary times. It's a famine in the Christian cultural ethos. And we do that through advocacy. So that's when we speak for life, advocating in the public square. The photo on the slide is from the March for Life. That's advocacy. This photo is from a few years back when LCMS Lutherans were carrying the banner at the National March for Life in Washington, D.C. This year, the Marches for Life are going to look very different, and a number of them have gone virtual. And by them, I mean in communities all across our country. There's not just one National March for Life in Washington, D.C., but there are marches and walks for life all over the country in January, but other months as well. And so being present at those events and showing that we are standing with others to speak for life is really important. And if you have the opportunity to do so, we encourage you to do that. And if there's not a march or a walk for life near you, you could always start one. You could reach out to me and I can give you some pointers as to some organizations that could help you do that. And my contact information will be a little bit later on the slide. But in addition to Marches for Life, calling up our elected officials, our representatives, it really doesn't take much to make an impact. And that's something that everyone can do, whether it's making a phone call, sending an email, or writing a letter. And this can be done at the state level or the federal level. We can tell that soon, at least at the federal level, it looks as though there's going to be tremendous challenges in the upcoming years. Based upon some of the statements that were made during the recent campaigns that were being conducted before the election. In 2021, we're going to be moving from the most pro-life executive office administration to the most radically pro-abortion executive office administration, and the most resistant to God's design for marriage and the family. So it's going to be really important that we have a strong witness in our communities. And speaking up for life is really confessing your faith in the public square. Locally, there's some things that you could look at and some ways that the church can speak up for life. Laws restricting abortion, they really do work to decrease the rates of abortion. And when Roe v. Wade is overturned, and I'm saying when because the pro-life community is very hopeful that this may happen judicially with a court case. There's nothing on the docket for the Supreme Court right now in their session, but there are court cases making their way through the system that may someday land in the Supreme Court and could potentially overturn Roe v. Wade. When this happens, what we'll see is that the abortion law issues will revert back to the states. There are states that have already put laws in the books that codified it in their constitution that there is no right to an abortion. So what we may see is that the abortion hubs could develop around the U.S. This would make it really important at the local and the state level that Christians could really make a difference, both with human care efforts and the mercy efforts I talked about, but also in your town. You could even now advocate for ordinances making your small town a sanctuary city for the unborn. This has happened in a number of cities. I think it numbers right now around 10 to 15 cities in the U.S. have said that they're sanctuary cities for the unborn and that abortion clinics cannot open in their city limits. So could that happen in your town? And who could you connect with to make an effort to see if that could happen in your town? Some things to think about. Some other things to check on locally and at the state level is the status of what's happening with chemical and prescription abortions. We've seen a tremendous surge in at home or do it yourself types of abortions with telehealth in the pandemic and prescription abortions. This is, of course, concerning because it's an abortion, but it's also concerning because there's a whole host of problems with women having these prescriptions. So that could be something you might want to check on to see what's happening in your state with prescription abortions. Also, sexualization of children. This fall, we saw some problems with shows on Netflix. Also, the state of California recently signed a law softening requirements for sex offenders of minors. There's a lot that's being hidden as far as what's being taught to children with curriculums in public schools. In the state of California, parents have discovered that anti-bullying curriculum is hiding transgender encouragement. That's probably happening in other states as well, and it's just not known because with anti-bullying curriculum, the schools don't have to release to parents what is going to be taught in the same way they have to with sex education curriculum. In states as well, there's contractors that are being brought into public schools to teach comprehensive sex education. People like Planned Parenthood centers and clinics are being invited into elementary schools to teach about comprehensive sex education. The church can provide resources for parents to raise children in the faith and to give a real clear focus on God's creation and value of life. That's going to be a much better option than those types of comprehensive sex education things that are so pervasive throughout our communities. Also, you may want to check on your state to see where things lie with assisted suicide, euthanasia. There are a number of states that have passed and made euthanasia legal. They use phrases like death with dignity or physician-assisted suicide. There's a lot of states who are still considering this, and sometimes there's bills that are floating around in committees and kind of it will sneak onto get tacked onto other legislation and things like that. So that's something else that you could advocate for at your state level, that assisted suicide not be made legal. There's other things that can be done with suicide prevention as well. There's tremendous pressures on our society, and we look at other societies as well to see what pressures they have and know what might be coming down the pike for us as far as a culture of life or lack thereof. Places like northern North America, like Canada, Scandinavia, parts of Europe, these countries in these regions have not had a culture of life for longer than the U.S. And so as we watch and see what's happening in their societies, we can kind of anticipate and prepare for what may happen in the U.S. We all need to speak up so that the culture of life can be returned to our society. Ultimately, the largest issue that we face is making disciples for life by actively witnessing in our own vocations. That's God's words going out to the ends of the earth, and even right here in the home where we teach about life. So when we teach about life, it may come immediately to mind that there's children that need to be taught about life, and we need to start right from their very youngest ages to make sure that our children understand that God creates each of us in the womb, and that we're people, a unique, distinct person right from the moment of conception. But also adults need to hear this as well. We have a lot of pro-choice people in our pews. We have a lot of post-abortive people in our pews. So teaching and preparing people to care and speak for life is something that the church needs to be doing. A couple of examples would be, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, about being knowledgeable about the do-it-yourself abortions. There's some time after a woman would take the first pill of a prescription abortion to change her mind. There's a hotline that she can call to reverse that. So if everyone knew about this hotline and knew the number for it, then that could really make an impact on reversing some of those do-it-yourself chemical abortions that are increasing in frequency. But even beyond that type of reversal option, on average, when a woman is making a decision about an abortion, it takes her maybe a week or so, certainly a number of days, to find out she's pregnant, consider what's going on in her life, and make a decision. And during those 5 to 7 days, women talk to other people. So knowing who they're talking to and those people being prepared to share life, to witness to life, can make a really big difference. Now, imagine that we would equip all of our confirmants to be really comfortable speaking and defending life and how to lovingly, mercifully share about life with their friends, particularly when someone is facing an abortion decision. And to help them to witness to their friends what God's design for life, marriage, and the family really is, so that uh, so they don't even get into that position of having to make a decision about an unexpected pregnancy. So, as we teach about life in LCMS Life Ministry and provide resources for the church, you can see some websites on the slide I just put up. We're going to be having a virtual conference this spring, March 19th through 20th. And the website is already up and live. You can even register for that now at LCMS slash, or I'm sorry, hyphen, it's a hyphen, www.lcms-life.org. And then on lcms.org/life, we've got a bunch of resources, a life library with over 200 articles and papers, some electronic versions of books that we've published are there. And we put out a newsletter every quarter. Of course, our synodical magazine, Lutheran Witness, is continually providing resources about our understanding of God's design for life, marriage, and the family. Even now this month, the issue that's out in the Lutheran Witness is focused on having a chaste life. So I highly recommend that you take a look at that. We also have curriculum called Looking at Life in the Womb. This was particularly prepared for schools, for Lutheran schools, but perhaps even public schools could use it. We have pregnancy centers and lots of people outside our synod who are finding this to be a very helpful curriculum to teach children about the tiniest people among us who grow in the womb and what that looks like with ultrasound, and how they can see that it's not just a blob of cells, but an actual very little person that God is growing inside a mother's womb. We have other resources like some resources on how to respond to and prevent domestic violence and other social issues. And we have a speakers bureau as well of people that we could connect you with who could offer a presentation in your congregation or your circuit or your district on a variety of life issues. So there's a lot of ways that you could engage with LCMS Life Ministry. I put a few ways to contact us on this next slide. Of course, the web page for the Life Conference that's coming up in March, and then the lcms.org/life, the page that has all of our resources and connectivity to the resources more broadly throughout our synod, and an email address, lifeministry@lcms.org, where you could reach out directly to me. I'm really interested, particularly since I'm new in my role, to connect with you, with people all across our synod. I want to learn about what's working well in life ministry in your congregation, your circuit, your town, your district, and also your challenges, and also what resources you need from us. We want to do what's really going to be helpful for you in your congregation. So I'd love to hear, even today, the questions that you might have and what it is that you need from Life Ministry, because I'm here to serve you.
Oh, thank you so much, Deaconess Maynor. You've given us some great information, and a couple of things that I noted. And don't forget, now's your chance to ask the questions of Deaconess Maynor. You got her, captive audience. So now's the time. But I love the different aspects of life ministry. I think sometimes as congregations look at things they can do, and they want to start some sort of life ministry activity, if you will. But it's such a broad scope. Maybe what's the best way or the easiest way for them to connect and start to do things in a small way so that they can start to build, a ministry that they can build upon for life ministry?
That's such a great question. I always encourage it. It doesn't take a whole lot of people. It really just takes one person, kind of catalyst, to get things rolling and get things started. So if you're listening to this, maybe you're that catalyst in your congregation, and perhaps you can recruit a few others to brainstorm with you ideas and things you can do. It can be as simple as supporting life and supporting the family by having not maybe not so much in the pandemic, but babysitting for families. Having a time at church where parents can bring their children to church, and there's a core group who can take care of children, so those parents can go out and spend some time together. It can start there, and it can go up to all kinds of projects, like I described, the material goods that you could take in and provide for your community. Um, I'm fascinated by Redeeming Life maternity homes. It was started at a congregation that has an average of 40 people in worship on a Sunday. So this was not a huge congregation with all kinds of assets and lots of volunteers. It was a pretty small congregation in a small town that said, we want to make a difference, and we want to provide a home for women who are in unexpected pregnancies. And it's grown from there. So having just one, two, three, four people that get together and think about what is that we can do, what assets do we have here amongst our body, amongst the people sitting in our pews, that we can do to serve our community.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I think it's a great example. You mentioned a congregation with 40 average worship attendants. You don't have to have hundreds and thousands. We think that we've got to be these large congregations, and I've spent almost 8 years now helping congregations realize you don't have to be huge to really make an impact for the gospel in your community. And another kind of and kind of to piggyback on that, take this webinar, show the one or two people that you pique some interest, show them this webinar, use that to pique some interest in going to the virtual life conference, and boom, you've got that snowball rolling there. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Don't reinvent the wheel. The wheel's been invented. Just use the wheels that are out there and find which ones fit on your vehicle. Another thing that I wrote down as you were presenting here, how can we help congregations, and by congregations I mean many congregation members, overcome the stigma or their hesitation for providing some kind of a life ministry? And this isn't just a hesitation, a life ministry, but oftentimes we have this stigma about reaching out and proclaiming the gospel, in the public square, especially in rural and small town, because we know everybody. What's one way we can help overcome that stigma or that hesitation?
Yeah, I think sometimes just gathering up a little bit of courage to do something different can really help to break down that stigma and that hesitation. I mentioned about reaching out to advocate at the local and state level, and I know for me, I was like, oh, I'm not very political. I vote, but it's not like I am someone who is turning out for primaries and caucuses and things like that. So for me, it was a pretty big leap a few years back to actually write a letter to my senator. And I found it super easy to do. Like, every state has a website with all the contact information. And he actually answered me back and kind of engaged me. And so that helped me feel a little bit braver. And when our state was uh, debating a law that was going to be quite detrimental to pregnancy centers, I wrote a letter to the editor of the newspaper, and he picked it up and called me, and we tweaked it, and he ran it as not just a letter to the editor, but an op-ed, an opinion editorial column. So sometimes just starting with that small one thing that it's a little bit outside our comfort zone, and we're a little bit brave and we do it, and then that can embolden us to do a little bit more, whether it's speaking for life or caring for life. I mean, I'm a deaconess. Caring for life is kind of my comfort zone. I'm really comfortable helping people when they're suffering and providing mercy to them. So for me, I needed to stretch and grow a little bit in speaking up for life, because that wasn't as natural for me. But it's not that you have to do both of those things. That was for me what I needed to do something new and something different.
Yeah, very good. I love the idea of, stretch that comfort zone a little bit. Just pray about it, pray about it, pray about it. And gosh, writing that letter didn't kill you. So you survived the whole ordeal. And now look, I really appreciate the fact that you brought in making disciples for life, because I really think this is a key aspect of I hate to make a broad generalization, but where we often miss the boat is we kind of assume that we've made disciples. But I think we would be, by and large, if we went and surveyed our congregations, especially the younger people, how far they have drifted away from the life stance of the LCMS. And I even to this day find it a little bit shocking now that I'm back in the parish and doing RSTM. I'm finding it even more shocking just in that 6 years that I was out of the parish, how things have drifted. And and you made a good point, equipping homes to be able to address. I think that's huge. I don't know if there are some specific resources that you guys have or are developing, but that's such a huge thing. The church can continue to proclaim, as a pastor and teaching confirmation, I can continue to teach on, say the sixth commandment and do those things, as well as I possibly can. God helping me out constantly because it's such a struggle. But the idea that we can equip parents and grandparents and to be able to have these conversations and see where our kids really are and what they're being exposed to, and not just our young kids, but especially equipping them before they go away to school, to college, or into the workforce, because boy, that's really where we're seeing a lot of things just fall to pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we're kind of constantly looking to put resources on our website and our life library. We have a whole section that's on Christian parenting and issues in the family. So I'm not going to try and just point you to one or two, but there's a whole bunch out there on our website. So those can be of help to the Christian family and loved ones and friends that are near by that could need that support as well. I know for me, I mentioned I was married to a pastor. I didn't mention, but maybe you can see behind me, we've got a bunch of kids and our own new grandchild. So we think about that in our family a whole lot. How are we raising our children um, to confess Christ in everything they do in all of their vocations? And how is it that we talk about life? Concordia Publishing House actually just published a book that's meant for early childhood readers the parents and grandparents and friends and family members who would read to very young children, talking about the title escapes me right now, but if you go on their website and type in life, you'll find it. Um, it's talking about how God grew you in your mother's womb and how you started out very, very young and very small. So it starts there. Even with my granddaughter, I read her the book a few weeks ago when I was with her, and we're going to start teaching her right from the start that she was made by God, and that He has formed her right from the time she was inside her mom's womb. And then as our children grow, we have to continue with that. And if there are people in your life who are like I wasn't brought up in the church. I wasn't going to Sunday school or sitting in the pew to hear God's word and be taught that way. But I had a godmother who took me to vacation Bible school every summer. So we can do that in all of our vocations, the people that are in our life, that we nurture that and point to Christ and all of these things.
Ah, she took her vocation as godmother very seriously. That's good. That doesn't happen altogether too often anymore. Uh, well, fantastic. You've given us some great resources, and more importantly, great places to go to access those resources. I believe that folks that are on today, Jenna gave you that link to download this PowerPoint. If you do that, fantastic. If you don't get a chance to do that or it didn't work, don't hesitate to contact our office, and we'd be happy to get that to you. Or you have you have Deaconess Mainer's contact information as well, or just get on the LCMS website. We're all on there, and you can hunt us down on that. So much fantastic stuff. Don't forget also, I believe, Deaconess Maynard, you'll be involved with the Making Disciples for Life conference that's coming up this next week. That's also free. So you can get on another virtual conference. So get on there and take advantage of that. I too am supposed to be involved in that, but this COVID thing is really putting a wrench into everything. But that's all right. We'll make it work. But again, thank you so much. You got about one more minute here. If you've got a question for Deaconess Maynard, we'd love to take that. Otherwise, I'll just take a minute to point you in the direction of what we have coming up. On February 18th, we have a webinar on parish nursing in rural and small town congregations, and that is, this kind of piggybacks where we're at now. So we'll be talking with Marcy Schnorr, education consultant for LCMS Parish Nursing and the LCMS Parish Nursing Council. March 4th, we have Mission Field Outside Your Door. We'll be talking to Reverend Max Phillips and Wanda Pritzel, CEO and Director of Perry Lutheran Homes. They're coming out of Fort Dodge, Iowa, doing some wonderful, really life ministry things there at various spectrums, and also compassion, fatigue, and burnout. And we'll be hearing from Reverend Dr. Rick Mars, Director of the MDiv program and residential alternate route programs at Concordia Seminary in St. Louis, where Deaconess Maynard and I and her husband and my wife all met for the first time when we were neighbors. And so that seems like a whole lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes just yesterday, too. So, all right. Well, that's what we've got coming up on our schedule. Again, thank you so much, Deaconess Maynard, for presenting for us today and giving us these resources. And thank you for the work you do supporting and protecting and caring for and speaking out on behalf of life and all the various aspects of that ministry for the LCMS and helping congregations do the same. Again, thank you all for being with us today. God's blessings to all in your various vocations and ministries. And if you ever need any help, don't hesitate to contact us. God's blessings to you all.